think we'll just start. Welcome to our workshop, The Plant-Powered Life. Now, my name is Carina, and this is Michael, and we have been really looking forward to coming here today and sharing with you something that we are very passionate and excited about, the power of plants. Now, before we get into that, first things first, he is not my husband. People sometimes wonder, this is my brother, so we share the same parents. And we both, though, are very excited about that topic, and we believe that we potentially, in 30 minutes today, could transform your life and give you the key to long-term wellness, happiness, and health. And we have a little bit of time in the end for questions, so if you do have questions, we ask you to ask them in the very end. I want to begin by telling you a brief story. A story about one of the greatest men I've ever known in my life. Now, this is a person that I adored. When I was little and I was growing up, I used to say that one day I will marry a man like this. Now, in 2001, October 2001, my life was suddenly turned upside down when this man that I loved so dearly passed away. Now, he died prematurely at the young age of 61. I was 14 years old when it happened, and his death left me completely traumatized and heartbroken. Now, that man that I'm talking about is my grandfather. One of the best grandfather any child could ask for. Now, the past 15 years, I've often wondered what caused, an active, fit, energetic, and positive person to die at the prime of his life. Was it bad luck? Was it genetics that people talk about? Was it just cancer that strikes randomly and deliberately? I don't know. He got 3 different kinds of cancers over a period of 10 years. And if we now fast forward 15 years, I've studied medicine, I've become a medical doctor, and I've gained a big interest for what we call preventative medicine. So like the name says, the prevention of disease. And after researching, reading, and educating myself on the topic, I've come to the overwhelming conclusion that what we put on our plate matters. It defines who we are and who we want to become. Now, I know all of this is kind of a sensitive topic because maybe some of you have had family members who's passed away, close friends, and I'm not saying that it's every person's own fault or that every premature death could have been prevented had that person made different lifestyle choices. But I believe we have to face the fact that most deaths in our Western world are caused by what's on our plate. Now, I don't know if my grandpa could be alive today if he had known what I known and changed his diet. He lived in Norway, and like most Norwegians back in those days, the diet was mostly compromised of animal products, animal protein. Fruit and vegetables were expensive, were scarce. And there's some few Norwegians here, you know that what they used to eat was maybe cooked carrots or some potatoes, and not much else. So I don't know, but I do wonder if things could have been different. That statement is something you have probably heard before. You are what you eat. Now, I believe that statement has never been more true than today. You are what you eat, and you become what you eat once the food enters your body. And you can view your body as kind of this living, changing organism that is constantly changing. For example, and this is a cool fact, did you know that your skeleton is renewing itself every 10 years? So I've had like 3 different skeletons in my life. Or some cells change as much as every 2 weeks. Now, it's this, if you see your body as kind of a house, if you hear the word cells, I don't know, you think of your biology classes, but to make it simple, you have 40 trillion cells in your body. That's a lot. That's a number with 12 zeros behind it. Now, the cells are like the little tiny bricks of a house. And if you want to live in a beautiful house, I think you should prioritize what kind of building materials you use. You should make this house your priority. Now you can choose to, buy cheap and crappy materials and make it look all nice from the outside. Maybe you see some cracks on the side and the walls after a time, and you paint over it, or you maybe put some wallpaper on it. But essentially, at some point, those walls will come down and your house will start to crumble. Now, I like that analogy as kind of our body too. What we put into our body is directly affecting all those little cells in our body that make our body our kind of, beautiful house. So what you eat, you are what you eat, even to every tiny little cell that makes you, you. Now, and health and happiness is not usually something you just get, but the result of choices you make and practices you do. And today we don't have a lot of time, but we want to give you a little roadmap on how to make this journey more fun and more easy. Now, the top killers in our Western world are caused or linked to diet. Now, we are at the youth conference. We don't want to talk about death too much. It has been shown, actually, that scaring people and telling them that you can die is not effective. Thinking that you can die will not change your lifestyle. But what we do want to do is talk about how you can be healthier and happier here and now, today, how you can wake up with more energy, how you can think better, feel better, how you can wake up with glowing skin and you have a brighter mind, how it's kind of making your life better now.
So, we have to talk about death, and when my sister asked me to help her with this presentation, I did not know that I had to cover the sad part of the presentation. But let's talk about it. 70% of death in our world, in the Western world, are basically unnecessary. Why unnecessary? Because they're caused by an unhealthy lifestyle and an unhealthy way of eating. So, you could all say, well, we all have to die at some point. So, what does it matter? Well, dying prematurely or too early is often accompanied by many years of poor life quality before you die. So I think it's worth it to look at the most common killers in our Western world. The first one, cardiovascular disease. Always these medical expressions. Well, cardiovascular means basically diseases of the heart and strokes, like infarctions of the heart mainly and infarctions of the brain. Today, these diseases are so common, probably you know if you who have problems with their heart or have had a stroke, that almost 1 in 2 people will at one point die of cardiovascular disease. So that would be like half this room. That's a lot. Is this prevalent or this common everywhere? No, in a few areas that live very differently than us, especially many places in Africa and also in rural China or Asia, heart disease is not very common and doesn't really exist. And it's not only because it's just not diagnosed. Second killer, that's for most people it's pretty scary, and it is scary because it's catching up quickly to heart disease. Well, cancer, almost 40% of us, like 40% of this room, will at one point be diagnosed with cancer. And 1 in 4 of us will at one point die of cancer. And that sounds like a lottery, like if I count 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. But fortunately, we can tell you it's not a lottery. We have a big influence, and we think with cancer, they think it's about 5 to 10% that are genetically acquired. But mostly, it's the lifestyle and outside factors that determine if you'll get it or not. So, 40%, yeah. Luckily for us, modern medicine has become pretty good at treating these diseases that are threatening us. A few years ago, a heart attack, even a pretty small one, would have been a death sentence, basically. Today, we're able to put tubes inside the tiny arteries of the heart, and we're even able to saw open the chest and do surgery on the open heart, and thereby prolong lives and also save lives. And even for cancers, we're developing more and more targeted therapies that are killing cancer cells and really saving people. But we have to admit that modern medicine is not very good yet at treating, at long-term treatment and especially prevention of disease. And that's where we think most life could be saved. Like for me, in my job as a medical doctor, I often see patients after traumatic experiences like heart attacks or strokes, really things that could have caused them to die. And I have to plan with them and talk to them about the future treatment and options. And being interested in lifestyle medicine, I usually tell them about weight loss and lifestyle and diet. But often they just look at me and ask me, isn't there a pill for that? And that makes it pretty difficult for us to work with patients because this mindset is a problem. Fortunately today, most people can find out. If you want to find out something like healthy lifestyle and what to eat or not, it is pretty easy. With the media today, just for example, meat has gotten a pretty bad press in the recent years. We know meat causes cancer. It's been put on the list of carcinogens, things that cause cancers, right aside cigarette smoking. It's in the same category. Most people don't know that, like processed meat especially. So we can find our information, but it's really difficult because there's so much information and often it's not consistent and we don't really know what to believe. For example, Time magazine put this on their cover. Scientists labeled fats the enemy, why they were wrong. So often we really don't know what to believe. And there's big businesses behind it and money and bad scientists. And for normal people, it's easy to just throw their hands up in the air and say, I don't know what to do. I'll just keep on living like I did. So are there more objective ways of finding out what the best diet is for us? The easiest way would be to just look at the populations of the Earth, find out where people are the healthiest and live the longest. And that's what a group of researchers did alongside Dan Buettner. They did lots of research and found out what groups of people on the Earth are living longer and are staying healthy for a long time. And they found 5 zones. They called them blue zones. And they're characterized by many more centenarians than usual. Centenarians are people that live 100 years or longer. And it's also characterized by these top killers not being that present at all. Like heart disease is 1/5 if you live in a blue zone. And 1/6. And cancers are 1/5 of the rate that we experience in our world. So I would like to live in a blue zone because also you live for 10 to 15 years longer, healthy years. So where do we have to move if we want to experience that? Here are the 5 zones they found. Let's go through them quickly. It's an island in Japan called Okinawa, an island in Greece, it's called Icaria. There's an island called Sardinia, probably you know that one. And then there's Nicoya in Costa Rica, that's in Peninsula. So all of these are pretty small areas, like secluded. And there's one that stands out, and that's Loma Linda, California, in the central of California. And who's heard of Loma Linda? Most people. It's basically the Adventist capital of the world. And that's really, it stands out. We've been there and it doesn't really look different than the rest of California. So what are the common denominators that make them live much more healthy and longer than we do? There are things like having a purpose in life, having strong families and communities, exercising, not really doing CrossFit exercises or things like that, but mowing the lawn and walking and like easy exercise daily. And there's one thing that stands out the most as the common denominator, and that's a mainly plant-based lifestyle or way of eating. So in Loma Linda, there's this story about this old guy, 95 years old, really old. So he walks outside his house and sees this fence, and it's kind of broken and old, and he thinks, well, he's 95, but he still needs a new fence. And he didn't want to hire a contractor, so he went out to the hardware store, bought a shovel and some tools, and built that fence. And 5 days later, he ended up in hospital. But not as a patient, but as a cardiac surgeon. So that's, what's his name?
Ellsworth Ward.
Yeah, I don't remember that name. He's today 103 years old. He operated on 12,000 hearts until he was 95 years old and he retired. And he himself says, he contributes his age and his health to his plant-based diet that he adhered to for 50 years, and he says he's basically not much different than he was 50 years ago. That's just his experience. And he's not the only old person who's doing crazy things in Loma Linda. Like this lady, I couldn't do that. I will probably break my nose or something, so please don't make me try that. Yeah, but I think it's pretty inspirational.
Now, you know, we as Christians, we could say, well, does it really matter if I get old, if I live 10 years younger or not? Because, you know, we're going to go to heaven anyways, and we're going to get the beautiful body, everything will be new and nice and perfect. And then I think I should stop you right there. Because especially we as Christians, I believe that we are created to make value, to create value in this world that we're living in now. And in order to do that, we need to function at our best. We need to be the best version we can be. And I believe too that we're created to be happy, to be healthy, and to be peaceful. And what we put on our plates, what we eat, is directly affecting those outcomes. So the question is, what should we eat? And that might now not come as a big surprise to you. The answer is plants. Plants have been shown now in more than enough also scientific evidence that a whole food plant-based diet is ideal for optimum health and to thrive throughout your life. And now you might think, oh, plants. And you're thinking, you know, of the cheesy pizza or the rich chocolate ice cream that's just melting in your mouth. And I must say that I do love that stuff too. But it is... Well, that was... But if there's something that... Yeah, that was not a good idea to put it like that. But if there's one thing that we want you to understand today is that we want you not just survive, but to thrive. Adopting a more, or just adding more plants to your life is not about deprivation. We don't want you to starve. We don't want you to eat, you know, boring carrots or celery sticks. I don't do that even. But it can be a fun journey. It can be an adventurous journey where you discover a whole new world of tastes and textures that you didn't even know about. So we want you to, or we make it like a fun process. Now, luckily, today is probably the best time in history ever to go more plant-based. It has become trendy. I don't know if you've noticed. It's a growing trend. People are starting talking about vegan lifestyle and all this stuff. We have all this meat-free animal product alternative coming up in our stores. There's lots of good restaurants, so it's trendy. It's actually the top, being vegan is the top global trend of 2016. Now this might seem like a bit of a contrast to the word trendy. You know maybe who this lady up here is? Ellen Goldwhite. This is her selfie from back then. I've Googled a lot. This is the best picture I found. She might not look very trendy, but if there's ever anyone deserving of the term trendsetter, it's her up there. Because 150 years ago, way before anyone else talked about it, she was promoting a plant-based lifestyle. And now today, so much later, the world is catching up. They're starting to notice and realize the benefits of a plant-based lifestyle, and it's not because of us Adventists. Like, we were pioneers. But somehow that has been a bit forgotten, I believe. So it's about time that we step up our game and that we become a voice, too, for this happy and healthy life in this world. Now, to something that I am very passionate about. And you're looking at this photo and going like, what? This is something that I'm researching. I'm spending the 4 years of my life researching this part. Our gut. The gut, for those of you who are not English speaking, is our intestines, all the beautiful stuff in here, and especially what's inside of it. Now, it's something we all have, even the Queen of England, and something that we all do, even though we don't like to talk about it. And you're like, why is that interesting? And let me tell you, it's not just me, but in medicine now, this is probably one of the hottest research subjects of the moment, because we're discovering amazing things. One thing is that you are mostly not you. What do I mean by that? You are, in fact, mostly bacteria. Did you know that? Do you remember that long number I gave you with the human cells, with the 12 zeros, the 40 trillion? You're 10 times more bacteria than that. Like, that's a whole new category. So that, I think, is quite fascinating. So but you can still be like, why does that matter? Just to explain how we call it, in medicine we call this the whole bacteria inside of you, we call it the microbiome. And it's fascinating because we are discovering that what kind of bacteria are inside of us, how many we have, can influence a whole lot. They can influence if you're overweight or not. They can influence if you will more likely get depressed or not. Like, how you feel and think can be influenced by your gut bacteria. We call it the gut-brain axis. It can determine if you will get allergies or not, whether you will get autoimmune diseases, a whole bunch of stuff. Now, we can also, so we have mostly, I didn't say that. When we speak of bacteria here, we're speaking of good bacteria, beneficial bacteria, bacteria that your body needs. Because the vast majority of bacteria is there to protect you and to produce chemicals and substances that will give you health. However, we, with our Western lifestyle today, are threatening our bacteria. Because we're eating diets that are highly processed, full of fat, full of sugar, full of animal protein, and they are harming our good bacteria and promoting bad bacteria. Are you with me? This is lots of science talk, but I'm making it brief, just what you need to know. Another word that shouldn't scare you, I will come back to the bacteria, is inflammation. Inflammation is actually a brilliant invention by your body. Now, if I, for example, I go and I stab my foot in this chair here, I will probably get a toe, that gets swollen, that gets red, and gets inflamed. That's a super invention by our body to go there to fight off the harm. Or if I get a bacterial infection or a virus infection, our body will produce its chemicals and signals that will go there and try to help us. That is something that's good. It's something we call acute inflammation. However, there's a different form of inflammation that's on the basis of lots of the diseases that we see today, and it's called chronic inflammation. Chronic inflammation means inflammation over time. And you might not get that red foot or that red swollen toe immediately because the symptoms can be quite subtle. It will come slowly and you might not realize it right away. For example, being, not having enough energy, being sleepy, maybe having bad skin, or don't feeling so well. Or then also other more diseases like he talked about, autoimmune diseases, Parkinson's, Alzheimer's and Parkinson's too for that matter. Lots of diseases are linked to chronic inflammation. And now back to the bacteria. What kind of bacteria we have will influence also inflammation. If we have bad lifestyles, we get more overweight of kind of bad bacteria that will cause chronic inflammation. Okay? So we want to promote beneficial bacteria. And we can do that by putting the right stuff into us. So we need to ask ourselves is, what if the bacteria, they want the right food, what do they want? And the answer is simple, and this is actually my whole research subject. The bacteria want more fiber. Do you know what fiber is? Fiber, we used to believe, is just what the body excretes that it doesn't produce, like the stuff of fruit and nuts and vegetables that is not digested. In German, we call it Ballaststoff, which means waste product. So we thought it's just waste. But now we're discovering that fiber is actually bacteria food, what the bacteria want. And if you want to have, good bacteria inside of you, you have to eat more fiber. Yes.
So basically you could say, tell me how much fiber you get and I can tell you how healthy your diet is. Because with fiber, you don't only get the fiber of the plants, you also get many other beneficial things like phytochemicals and vitamins and the water in the plants and lots of other things. So 16 grams, that's a number you don't have to remember. That's really not good, but that's the average consumption of fiber that we have in our world. Much better would be the recommended value or even more, 40 grams. 97% of the population of the US don't get enough fiber. 97, that's almost everyone. You don't really know what 40 grams means. So we just made a small meal plan for you so you could see what 40 grams of fiber would mean, for example. So if you have 1 apple, like a small handful of beans, a piece of broccoli, a banana, 2 tablespoons of chia seeds, they're really lots of fiber. Also other seeds like flax seeds, some nuts, not many, and some oatmeal. That would be 40 grams of fiber. For me, that's not much food. But yeah, it sounds actually pretty easy, but you have to put some thoughts into what you're eating every day. Like if you're only eating chips and, I don't know, unhealthy things, you might not get to 40 grams of fiber. So I'm not the superstar in the kitchen, I'll be honest with you, and I don't really love spending all my day in the kitchen and cooking. I have other things I prefer to do. How do I ensure that I still get enough of the good stuff so I have enough energy for the hard days in hospital and also for doing sports and other things you like to do? Well, the 2 big attractions in my kitchen are a juicer and a blender. So in the morning I start off with a smoothie that I sometimes prepare the night before. Sometimes I do it in the morning. And like this, you get like all your basic needs. So the rest of your day is not that important, you could say, because you already started your day pretty good.
What do you put in it? Just so people.
Well, usually I make it green because the green things are very beneficial for you. It's very important that you put something with vitamin C in it because it helps with the absorptions of many things like iron and stuff like that. So lemon or orange or something like that. And then I just put in there whatever I have at home. I can't really tell you. Well, I like bananas, so there's always at least probably 2 bananas inside. But you can make it however you want. And you will find endless recipes in the internet if you like to plan it more than I do. I'm pretty spontaneous. So, and uncomplicated. Or you make like 2 tablespoons of chia, like I told you in the daily meal plan. Put some plant milk in there. Oat milk is my favorite. Put it in the fridge overnight and you have a really good breakfast. Or you take these chickpeas and blend them with some garlic or something else and you have hummus, the basic go-to food for every plant-based eater. Or you make some just bowls with quinoa, and the dressing is really important. Carina says she's the superstar in the kitchen. I can't really talk about that too much. But it's pretty easy if you really plan. I like making a big salad and having something on the side, and that's it. So I'm very uncomplicated. If you want more, there's lots of inspiration in the internet, I've been told. Yeah.
Now, let's all agree on one thing. It's that people make mistakes in life. And some things that at one point maybe seemed like a good idea, we now look back and we think, oh, what were we thinking? Now, the same is true with our diet too. I believe that maybe in 30 years' time, we will look back and wonder, what were we eating? Now, in some ways, things that we think is healthy, we must realize maybe are not always healthy. So what we need is a paradigm shift. So even though people all around us might be doing it, that's not an argument for it being the best way to live. So I will strongly advocate that you will make health a priority and make health a habit. You will not regret it. Now, someone told me it's always smart to put some kind of intelligent person's quote in a presentation. So I did find a good quote by Aristotle, who said, "We are what we repeatedly do. Excellence then is not an act, but a habit." However, it can be difficult to know where to start. Like my brother said earlier, we are often overwhelmed with lots of different expert advices, people that are telling us, oh, do this and do that. And then we can get so overwhelmed that we're like, oh, I don't even want to start. But let me stop you there. I believe that making this healthy lifestyle, you can make it fun and you can make it adventurous. You can also end up in a more extreme way, which we also don't advocate, getting, eating disorders and all that will make you unhealthy and unhappy. We're not speaking about that. We're speaking about good practices that you will put and add into your life. Now, even more difficult, though, than making good habits can be to break bad habits. And there are some strategies, maybe, that I will suggest to you, strategies that will make it easier for us and set yourself up for success. One of them is, okay, we'll skip over that. One of them is that you can set up your environment the right way. I call it re-engineer your environment. For example, it's very hard to defeat willpower. Willpower is exhausting. So try to not even get there. So if you have, that bag of potato chips lying on your couch, this bag of potato chips is probably going to start screaming your name and calling out for you. And it's very hard to resist. So my advice would be, don't even get it there. Or if you know you have certain foods you want to avoid that are not good for you, try to get rid of them, because having them in this house will make it difficult for you, and you will end up getting disappointed and be like, I did it again. So grab all the junk food that you have and give it to a neighbor that you don't like, or something like that. And then one good news, and this I know this from experience. Maybe we're standing here and talking like these big words. We know how good that maybe fries taste and all of that, and sugary meals and chocolate. But I know from experience that your palate will change. That means your taste buds and your taste can change. It has been shown that after a few weeks, even though it might be a bit difficult in the beginning, your taste buds will adapt and they will start to crave the food that's actually good for you. It's true, right? Yeah. And then, like he said, to starting the mornings right, for me, that's a big deal. Like, if I know I get that green smoothie with all the right seeds and nuts and all these fruit and vegetables in it, that's a good start. And I'm much more set up for success. I've had a good start. So even if okay, I eat that chocolate here and then, okay, it's not ideal, but I know that I've made a good decision from the very morning. So try to wake up and decide to make a good decision by how you start your day. And then also I want to advocate for going out there and finding all the brilliant information there is. This is just a few of some cookbooks that I like. There's a ton more. There's brilliant blogs. It's beautiful resources that will give you information. Because eating just cooked vegetables, I never do that. I hate that. It has to be good. It has to be fun. Also Instagram. This is actually our sister's Instagram account. There's many different, if you have Instagram, many different sites. It's just an inspiration that you can use to get information. I love it. So go out there and kind of find the information that will make it much more easy to adopt a more plant-based life.
We're slowly coming to the end, but there's a few things we just have to mention at least. Because we've been talking about all the kind of selfish reasons for eating more healthy, like feeling better, having more energy, looking better also. But there's many reasons why we choose to live like this. And it's sometimes more popular to talk about the other reasons, but there's a few good ones here too. So, for example, the Amazon destruction, that's mainly caused by animal agriculture, the climate change, the global warming, and also world hunger, because we're growing so many plants that we could feed 13 billion people, and we're only 7 on this planet. But we're choosing to giving it to animals that eat much more, way more than us, and then instead of eating the plant, eating the animal that ate the plant. So that's how it is. So also climate change. Animal agriculture is estimated to be between 28 and 51% of the CO2 emissions. To compare it, all of the traffic, all the cars you see, all the planes you see, all the ships are accounted for about 13% of CO2 emissions. So this, even though if you would take the 28 number, even though I think this is more correct, that's a big difference. So the most powerful action would be to change your eating style. So if you, for example, would change for a, let's say, medium meat eater to a vegetarian, That would be a pretty big shift. If it changed to a mostly plant-based diet, you would cut it in half, basically. So you can make a big difference by only just changing the way you eat and feeling better at the same time. So only advantages. The rainforest, the lungs of our earth, it's so important to us. And 75% of the Amazon destruction is for growing either food for animals or for the grazing of animals. So we can see it's a big problem, and we just have to talk about it quickly. We're killing each year 56 billion animals for 7 billion people and 90 billion marine animals. That's really a lot of animals that we're eating every year. So, almost at the end, each day, if you turn plant-based, we don't say you have to be perfect right away. You just change slowly, but if you choose to be fully plant-based, you would say every day 4,060 liters of water, 20 kilos of grain, 2.8 square meters of rainforest, and 9 kilos of CO2 equivalent. And one animal's life, and I will just show you the animal you're going to save every day. This one. Look at him. No tears here, but yeah. So.
Oh, you can cry. It's sad. Yeah. Okay, so we just want to finish by saying, now, obviously, we were given 30 minutes. It's not a lot of time, but I think you've maybe realized a bit of our enthusiasm for this, and we're speaking from experience, that going more, let's say adding, you don't have to be vegan, but adding more plants to your diet and reducing animal products is probably one of the single most powerful actions you could take in your life. Firstly, like we said, for you, for your well-being, for your health, for your body. But then also, and that's a big part, is for this world we're living in, for the people in it, for the animals in it. And I believe that the time is now to, start to make a change. If you go home, be like, okay, what can I start doing? And I know you will benefit greatly from it. It is, plant-powered life is one of the best decisions you can make. Thanks for your attention.